Thank you everyone for joining this training. And in today's training, we are going to talk about what Agile is, why Agile is implemented, what are the benefits of Agile, and what are the Agile methodologies. But just before I move into all this, I would like to give you a brief introduction about myself. Some of you must know me, some of you are not. So my name is Raghav, and I'm a certified Agile practitioner. I work as a senior project manager, and I have successfully implemented many agile projects in many of my previous organizations. So today I'm going to talk about the agile and Scrum and about agile failure points, agile success point, and many other things. So let's see what I have in my catalog to offer you in this training. I'll move on to the agenda. So I'll start my training with Agile background. What is Agile, why, how, and all these basic questions. Then we are going to talk about Agile fundamentals, about what is Agile Manifesto, what is Agile Principle, what Agile actually brings into the project, how does it benefit. And then we are going to talk about Agile methods. What are the various Agile methods? People might have confused between Agile and Scrum. So we're going to talk about what is Agile, what is Scrum, what is paired programming, that's called as extreme programming. And there are many other methods that we're going to talk about. And finally, in the last, we are going to talk about Agile adoption and failure, that when we adopt Agile, what could be the benefits, but at the same time, what could be the failing points where Agile fails. And all those people who are interviewing as Agile coach or Scrum Masters or anywhere that is related to Agile, they need to pay a special attention over here, because Agile failure could be a very potential question for us to be asked for all these roles. So I would like all those people to pay a special attention on the last part of the training. So let's go with the Agile background first. But before we go, I would like to talk about de-learning. Many times we see that some people work in Agile, they have some of the knowledge, but they don't have the full knowledge. So before we start, we have to de-learn what is not Agile. So first, Scrum and Agile are not same. Many people who are not very familiar with Agile and Scrum, they consider Scrum is Agile, Agile is Scrum. They are similar to each other, but that's not the case. Agile and Scrum are different. How they are different, I'm going to talk about in later slides, but just now for your information. So if we talk about Microsoft Windows or a software, then it is Agile, and Scrum could be called as a Microsoft Word. So Scrum is just a method of overall Agile. So if Agile is a framework, Scrum is just a methodology of that framework. Okay. So next, Agile is not just a software development method. It's actually Agile. It's actually a mindset that how you deliver the things. So it's not only just, it could be used only on IT organizations. It could be used anywhere. I mean, most of the organizations, even Toyota uses Agile, even some news agencies use Agile. So there are many places where Agile is used. Agile is not a remedy for all cures. So Agile also fail many times, and we have seen in past that Agile fail, and when Agile fails badly many times. If we don't practice its operative model, then it is bound to fail. It is not many times, and this is not for people who practice Agile, but it's for employers. Many times employers mistakenly use, or senior managers mistakenly use, that if you want to reduce cost, go to Agile, cost will be reduced. That's absolutely false. Agile is not used for reducing cost, although if we implement Agile, there's a big possibility of a bigger return of investments. So bigger return of investments and Agile, these are quite different things. And again, cost, it does not directly reduces the cost. And again, as the one quick thing about reducing time, Agile does not reduce time. So the key thing about Agile is Agile does frequent deliveries. It do continuous deliveries, and it delivers a particular product into different pieces, and each piece is delivered in a particular frequency, but it does not reduce overall time. If there is an X amount of overall time, it could be worked on the overall time itself. That is no given proof that Agile reduces times. So now we have de-learned all this, that what is not Agile. I'm going to talk about that why Agile was actually introduced. So in the beginning of 2000 and late 90s, we were having problems that the business were growing. Multinational companies were moving on to different territories, different charters. And we found that one of the key problems with all the businesses were that the changing requirements, business dynamics. So these were the two major problems of business. And you will see how the requirements changes and how the business dynamics impact the changing requirements. So let's give you an example. Suppose there's a company named WhatsApp, and there's a parallel company, its competitor, let's call it Super WhatsApp. So if Super WhatsApp wants to make a product which is better than WhatsApp, so what it's going to do is they are going to launch WhatsApp similar feature, and they are going to add 10 more features to it so that it would be called as a daddy of WhatsApp, and people could move on to Super WhatsApp from WhatsApp. But what's going to happen if they would give this product to make to and some company to make this product? What's going to happen by the time the company will make up the product in 1 year or something? WhatsApp would enhance itself. It would by itself use 20 more features to add, so that the product that Super WhatsApp is about to make would no longer be used. So in that case, the business competition between companies always lead to business dynamics changes and requirement changes. So in order to help that, we use Agile. Again, the problem statement, I'll come back to the other problem statement, is immediate gratification and efficiency of people. So, but about immediate gratification, I'm going to talk about that when you are developing something as a developer, as a company who makes the products. If you are developing something and if you're not showing to the customer, you're showing it after a year or 9, 10 months, then it doesn't mean anything because the customer doesn't know what's going on there. And if you have moved into either wrong estimations, wrong understanding, or you are dealing with something which is a completely on wrong direction, you will not get to know that how long you have been going into wrong directions. So if you are able to deliver incremental products, small products, and each of frequent intervals, so that customer could have a look on that, so customer would be satisfied that okay, his product is getting delivered very frequently, and he would also be able to check that what are you delivering, so that if you make a mistake anytime, he could be able to help you with the corrective measures. And again, Agile, one of the problem statement is when you work in a larger teams, the problem is that that is always conflict happens, and nobody knows who's going to be assigned, who's going to make the assignment, and all these things. So there is a remedy in Agile that it makes self-organizing teams. So this could be a solution to that problem. So we have learned here in this slide that what is not Agile and what are the problems before Agile was introduced. Now we are going to talk about how does Agile solves these problems. So let's move on to the next slide. So the solution for that is Agile Manifesto. So in Agile, what we do is we have 4 manifestos in Agile, and these are the guiding headlights of Agile. We strongly believe that in Agile, we focus more on individuals and interactions rather than processes and tools. So as I told you, that Agile is people-centric, not anything else. It is people-centric. It knows that a product is developed by people, it is used by people, and it creates value for people. So people are the one who are at the center stage. So it makes the product considering people into the mind, who the people who will be using the product, who the people who would be making the product, who the people who would be impacted by the product. So considering all that, it focus more on dev team, it focus more on customers, it also focus on users, or it focuses on everyone who could impact the product or who could be impacted by the product. Second thing is Agile focusing on the working software. So even if we are doing some incremental deliveries, we are doing short amount of deliveries in each piece, we make sure that whatever we deliver is working. It's working somewhere. So in early 90s and late 80s, we have seen that all the software development and something that happened, it required comprehensive documentation. It required a understanding, knowledge transition, and everything that requires to build a complete software. But Agile completely turned around this mindset. And the new mindset for Agile was that we are going to focus more on product that is working rather than utilizing a large amount of time in making documentation, making guidelines and everything. Although Agile do documentation, we provide the guidelines, but the primary focus is on in delivering a working software rather than a documentation. Next is the customer collaboration customer collaboration over negotiation. For example, in Agile, if a customer comes say that, okay, you are building a product, but now I want to change that. And this change could be, for example, you are making a chat engine in which people could chat with the customers. And now customer is coming back and he's saying that along with the chat, I need to bring in some automation so that if there is no human, a machine could answer the most frequent customer questions. So in that case, in such a complexity, there are two things that are going to happen. One is you need to have a frequent collaboration from the customer, and second, you would have to accept the change. So there are two things. Point number 3 and point number 4 are very interrelated with each other. So when the requirements are not clearly defined, it is changing. You need to have frequent communication with the customer so that to understand that you are heading towards the right directions. And instead of negotiating with the customer that this is not the work that you initially assigned, we are not going to do for that, we just completely turns it around and we welcome the change. We say that you want to change the requirements, it's great, we would be happy to do that, although there would be a commercial aspect that the customer would have to be paid for that, customer have to pay for that, but we would be welcoming change, and we will try to do every best to bring up the change if it is within our limits. So these are the 4 manifesto, with these are the 4 guidelines for Agile. And when we do that, we finally come back to Agile principles. And what are the Agile principles? So on the basis of all these 4 guidelines and problems, we finally define that how the Agile should be implemented, what are the Agile principles should be. So one of the key Agile principle is a continuous pace of delivery. So what we do in Agile, if we have a full work, we break them into pieces and we deliver each piece in a very specific frequency, maybe at 14 days, maybe at 28 days, depending upon what kind of work it is. But we make sure that we are doing a continuous delivery. We are not doing something that we work for 14 days and then we didn't work for a few days, we again started over again. So in every 2 weeks or 4 weeks, we are delivering something to the customer. Second, we work on a collaboration. So that is a very frequent communication between customer and Agile teams. Customer understand that what we are doing in, and he usually tests the things. He comes to the meeting many times and discusses that how well we are progressing. If we are failing over, what could the failing point. So a quick collaboration between not only with the customers but also with all stakeholders, including the dev team, is good in Agile. Next is, again, I said that the continuous delivery and the continuous attention on technical excellence is something which is Agile, one of the major Agile principles. It is frequently known that when we are working on Agile, we have to make sure that we are excelling in terms of technology. And if we are doing something, we need to avoid waste. And if there is anything we could do to improve our efficiency, especially technically, then we are welcoming towards that. Next principle is about welcoming change. We have already discussed about how we welcome change and how we deliver the software frequently. And one of the key feature of Agile is self-organizing team. Unlike other waterfall projects, there is a beauty of Agile that there is no titles in the Agile teams. Titles, that means someone say that I'm the manager, I'm the senior, you are the junior, I'm a developer, you are a tester, you are a database administrator. So there is no titles over there. There are roles in Agile, such as Scrum Master, Product Owner, Dev Team Member or something. Roles are different things, but there is no titles in the team. So when we say self-organizing team means that nobody is going to assign you the work. Nobody is going to be your manager who will be telling you that, okay, Sam, you would have to do this. Martha, you would have to do this. Jack, you have to do this. Nobody's going to do that. People are going to pick up that work by themselves, depending upon in a very democratic way. And they would be accountable for their own work, and the whole team, as a team, they would be responsible for the delivery of the project. So it's a self-organizing team. If there's a conflict between the team, they would resolve in a democratic way. People who would have a different role, such as Scrum Master, they would come and help people. But there is no one who's going to be micromanaging team that someone do this, someone do that, and it would be everyone's responsibility. Again, I said that it's efficient communication is a part of Agile principles. One thing that is again important to discuss is Agile favors simplicity. So if there's a complex requirement, what they do is they break down into its very granular levels. And out of this granular level, they start with the most simple thing. They build all the simple things together, then combine it together through the integration, and then finally deliver to the people. And customer is something which is given a priority in Agile, but this priority is through early and continuous delivery in the frequent way. It doesn't mean that we put customers choices against all others. It's not like that. That customer satisfaction and customer priority means that we are doing something which would delight the customers. We do a retrospection in Agile, and after every delivery is made, we do a retrospective meeting and we see what did we do wrong, what we do right, and all that. And finally, in Agile, we do a measure of progress, that if we have done something, how much we have progressed from that. So these are the 12 guiding principles of Agile. Very much important if you are going to have, and these, if you're going to have an interview or something, these are the something which is very clearly laid out here, and you could be utilize them in discussing about Agile in any of the interviews or so. Most importantly, these principles are not just in software delivery. It could be very well leveraged in any other communication or any other industry as well. So next, now we have seen that what is Agile and what kind of ways it could impact people. We'll see that what is the result of Agile. So there has been many projects across the world that's happening on Agile. There are almost, I've seen most of the top companies, no matter of which brand they are, no matter what industry they are, if they are doing any kind of implementation, either IT or non-IT, many of them using Agile. So the key thing, the result of Agile is that increases return of investments. And why it increases the results of investments? Because of the good practices, because of self-organizing team, because they don't fail on estimations, because they divide them into most granular level. They increase the return of investments because there is a frequent testing going on in the all Agile environments. So that is the reason it increases return of investments. Second, it delivers reliable products. Why deliver reliable products? Because there is a very frequent customer collaboration into it. You fail somewhere, it is a failed delivery, customer comes back in a 14 days or so and comes back, say that this is not he was looking for. So if you go into a wrong direction, we have a quick check over there so that we don't go long into that particular wrong direction. So Agile delivers reliable products. Again, I said that it welcomes change, it welcomes uncertainty. So unlike other projects where you are working, you are halfway between and you find that something is completely changing, you have no idea where to go. In Agile, the projects are planned in such a way that there is enough room made into the projects that if the requirements get changing, even if it changes by 90 degrees or 180 degrees, the teams are capable of making the changes towards the project. It promotes creativity and innovation because when we work in an uncertain environment, we don't have a particular territory to work on. We are vigilant always to see that if there is a problem coming in, how we are going to resolve it. So it promotes creativity, innovation, and finally it boosts performance because there is no, I would say, ringmaster there who would tell us that you would have to do that, you would have to do that, you are failing behind. So one of the key principles, one of the key thing that I love about Agile is if you are failing in Agile, if you're not able to cope up in Agile, you are not able to do the deliveries, nobody has come back and pointing out that, okay, Martha, you are not able, you are the one who is trying to sink us down. Rather, it's a concept of Agile that if someone is falling apart or someone is sinking down, the whole team comes for the rescue. They try to find out what is the they try to figure out what is the way out to get rid of the situation rather than blaming people. So there is no blame game here. So it boosts trust and performance. So that is one of the key results of Agile implementation. And that's why many people and companies love Agile. Okay, so now we have discussed about all the Agile results. I'm going to talk about Agile methods. And there are overall more than a dozen Agile methods, but we are going to talk about only 4 major ones. And out of the 4 major ones, there are actually 2, Scrum and Extreme Programming, which are mostly used. So we are going to talk about these 4 pillars, these 4 Agile methods. The first is Scrum. So Scrum is most commonly used Agile methodology. And most of the companies love Scrum, although it has got its demerits and something, and that I'm going to talk about in the next chapter. in next training rather. So the Scrum is based on three pillars. First is transparency. What does transparency mean? So the transparency means that everybody knows what they are doing. Everybody knows that what would be the result of what they are doing, and everybody knows how they are doing. This is transparency. Customer will know that what product they are getting in. Customer team and customer both will know that what is the definition of done about finishing a product. So that's transparency. In terms of inspection, Scrum is based on very frequent inspections, where in each of the iterations that you do, there is a frequent inspection by customers, by yourself, by your team members. So, and that inspection is so frequent that if you make a mistake, there's enough room to make an improvement so that other pillars does not get impacted. And finally is adaptation. So if anything that goes wrong, or if anything that comes as a change, you are very much equipped to adapt. So Scrum is based on certain, in the same methodology, that if there is a change is happening in, it is easily able to adapt on that change. If we talk about now onto the second agile method, that is extreme programming. So whereas Scrum is based on a delivery methodology over delivering product in every frequent interval, and based on velocity, that we should move on with a constant velocity, and we should finish a product given delivering a piece of the product in a frequent time manner. In against that, extreme programming is based on their best practice of software delivery. So the best practice of software development, rather, I would say. So what these best practices are? These best practices are simplicity. So no matter how complex project you get, so extreme programming says that you will break it down into simpler pieces, and you will start with the most simple piece. You will keep on developing simple pieces together, and then you are going to integrate. It is extreme program is also based on team communication. So the team communication is something, the communication levels in extreme programming is much more than Scrum. Although we say that Scrum, we have frequent meetings and everything, but in extreme programming, this is also called as a paired programming, in which two people work together each other, and they develop and they review. So they do it together. So the frequency of communication is very high in extreme programming. And there is a good level of feedback from everywhere, internally within the team and from the customer. Fourth is, it is very courageous to introduce extreme programming. And why it is courageous? Because if you are doing something, there is no black box in extreme programming. So if you're working on a code, or if you're doing something, it is visible for everyone. Everyone would know that who everyone is doing. So it is courageous, because many people don't like to share something until they are completely done with that. So which is not the case here. So one has to be extremely courageous when he's sure that whatever he's doing is visible to everyone. And finally, it's about respect. Respect is a key element, because when you fail in extreme programming, it is not your individual failure. It's a failure of a team, no matter who caused it. So it's more about a teamwork, where a lot of people are working together, especially two people who are working in as a paired programmers in extreme programming. So it requires a lot of respect with each other, and it's a lot of understanding from each other. So that is all about extreme programming. And if we talk about the feature driven development, so it is not very frequently used in feature driven development, as the name suggests, that we make a product model, then we break the product model into feature by feature basis, and then we plan the work, and then when we deliver on a feature by feature basis. For example, if you are delivering a portal like Amazon, then you are going to make a landing page, you are going to make a customer portal, you are going to make another feature that is called a vendor portal, then you will make a chat bot, then you will make another feature like review of the products. So you'll dice and slice them into various features, and you're going to deliver the things on a feature to feature basis. Next is last that we talk about the dynamic system development, and it is very broader aspect. Usually this kind of agile methodology is used when you don't have a clear understanding about the business case. You try to understand more about the business case, that what is the business trying to develop, and what would the return of investment, is it a feasible product to release or not. So that's all we did. That's all we first checks on dynamic system development, and the requirements again are not very clear. So we start slowly and gradually, and then we move on into the actual development. All right, so with this slide, we know that what are the 4 agile methods. Now we are going to talk about Scrum, our first agile method, although Scrum is a very intense topic, and I'm going to talk about Scrum in detail in my next training session next week. But before we move on to Scrum, I'm going to talk about Scrum at glance. I'm going to talk about what are the basic definitions of Scrum. So I'm going to start about the first thing I'm going to start about is your Scrum team members. So Scrum team members, there's a particular team, and Scrum team members mean that there are 3 parts of the Scrum team. One is the development team, the other one is a product owner, and third one is Scrum Master. So Scrum dev team means all the people who are developing the product. It could be developers, it could be testers, it could be database engineers or anyone. So all these people are called as dev team. There is no separate titles to it. Their work is to work on the product, to complete the backlog, to complete all the work, deliver it to the customer, get the feedback, make the refinings, then again make it as a working software, release it again. Next is the product owner. For product owner is product owner is not project manager, by the way. So product owner is a completely different role. It's a role, it's not a title. So product owner is the one who defines the product backlog, takes the requirement, defines the product backlog. Product backlog is something is the list of all the work that is supposed to be done onto the product. So product owner defines that what is the work related to product that needs to be done, and he prioritizes that work. He sees that whatever product we are developing, what is its feasibility and what is its value. So it is not like a simple business analyst. It's a different role. Business analyst and product owner differs in a vast way from business analyst. So don't get confused between product owner, business analyst, and project manager. Project manager is again a completely different thing. Don't mix product manager with product owner, because in true agile there is no project manager. Next is your Scrum Master. So Scrum Master is someone who is a servant leader. By the mean servant leader, we mean that he's a leader, but it works like a servant. So what it does that he's not a manager again. So he's a leader who tries to motivate people, who tries to remove all the impediments coming in between the development team, so that the development team could focus on the software delivery. And its job is, if there's a conflict, he helps people in resolving conflicts. His job is that the team does the work in undivided attention. If there is some interruptions coming from the senior management, from peers, from anyone, so he's the one who is the shield for the team. Anything wrong comes in, Scrum Master is the one who's going to help the team. So it's a leadership role. First thing, it's a leadership role. Secondly, Scrum Master also assists product owner in terms of making a backlog, in terms of prioritizing the backlog. He chairs all the meetings and discusses about various aspects of the product development cycle. So that's the role of a Scrum Master. Now we're going to talk about what are the meetings that we happen in Scrum. So in Scrum, there are a few meetings that we call as a Scrum meeting, daily Scrum meeting. Daily Scrum meeting, something all the team member comes in and discuss that what they have done in the past, what they have done, what they are planning to do with today, and what is, if there is any impediments in that work or not. So with these 3 things, they show that what are the results they have achieved, what they are going to achieve, and if there could be any variation in that achievement or not. So it gives a heads up to the team. And then there is another meeting that is called a sprint meeting. I'm going to talk about sprint in very shortly. So sprint is actually just an iteration of a piece of work it's a time boxed interval. It's a time boxed iteration in which we deliver a particular piece of backlog. So that is a sprint. And when we plan the sprint, we talk about that out of all the work that we have in Scrum, what are we going to take up first? So whatever we have taken up to work on that is called as sprint backlog. So we work on the sprint backlog on the sprint planning meeting. We say that what are we going to work? How are we going to work? How are we going to plan overall for the 14 or 28 days, depending upon what the length of sprint is. And we do all kind of planning onto that. Next, when the sprint is completed, we do a sprint review meeting in which we show that what we have done in that sprint, what we have achieved, and that dev team shows it to the Scrum Master and to the product owner. Product owner asks the questions about the product in the sprint review meeting, talks about that what is done, what is not, and it's ultimately product owner's call to decide whether this definition of done fits well into the sprint or not. And he decides whether the backlog is completed or it has not been completed. And finally, there is a sprint meeting in which a sprint retrospective meeting in which we discuss that once the sprint is completed, we do a retro meeting. And retro meeting says that it focuses on three things. What should we stop doing? It means that anything that is not a best practice, anything that is not bringing up results, anything that is not good achievement for us, we should stop doing that. Second, what we should start doing. So is there any new initiative that could help us in giving more advantage in terms of creating value through product? We should start do that. So we discuss on what could be started now in the next sprint. And finally, what the team should continue doing. So it is as an ongoing procedure. If something is bringing us results, how we could continue doing the same things. So these are the 4 meetings that we do in sprint. And I'll just again to talk about few basic definitions more, that what are these definitions before I come back to a brief overview of Scrum. So first is a product backlog. As I said, that product backlog is nothing but it's just a list of all the work, all the things that you need to do to build up a product. So we take down these requirements, break them into levels, to granular levels, and we see that what are these total amount of work that we need to do to bring up this product. Second is product owner. I've also said that product owner is not a title. It is actually a role. It's the person who decides that what work needs to be included in a particular for the particular development of a product. What should be its priority, and what is its feasibility? What is the value it's going to create? So these are something it is done by product owner. Self-organizing teams, I have also mentioned in my previous slide that the whole agile team is self-organizing. They decide among themselves in a democratic way that who's going to take what and how they are going to be delivered, whether the sprint would be of 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and how they would have to do the delivery, how they are going to take the feedback, what is the definition of done. So these are the self-organizing team. Nobody forces anyone. So it's something people are accountable for everything, and as a whole, individual people are accountable for everything, and team as a whole is responsible for everything. Sprint is again a small iteration, could be of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it is a very time box iteration in which we have a particular sprint backlog, and we have to deliver that backlog into that time boxed manner. Next is artifacts. Artifacts is something about, you can say that various documentation. It could be the product backlog. It could be the definition of done. It could be sprint backlog. So anything that that needs to be worked on, a list of that is a part of artifacts. Definition of done is something when you complete a particular thing, how you would define that this is completed. Many times people say that a thing is completed when this 90% complete. Someone says that no, thing is not complete until you get a sign off from the customer. So depending upon the project and the role that you play, you define that what is the definition of done, and you agree with the customer and senior management and all the stakeholders that what is the definition of done, and you bring them all into the same page. Again, regarding sprint and Scrum Master, I have already discussed. So now we are going to talk about the burn up and burn down charts. So Scrum Master is the one who takes care of this burn up and burn down charts. So one of the key thing is we have to deliver in the time box manner. So if we have a sprint of 2 weeks, Scrum Master ensures that he checks the velocity on daily basis or maybe alternate day basis, and he see that with the same velocity we are moving, are we under the schedule or we are over the schedule. If it is over the schedule, he comes back, mentions that we are over the schedule, we need to bring up some ways so that we could cover up the time. Or if we can't do it for some reason, then we would have to make some of the backlogs to the next sprint. So he do that in the form of burn up and burn down charts. He burn up and burn down charts shows that with this something that we have completed, how much is remaining. So he, depending upon the Scrum Master, he may use either the burn up charts or burn down charts. Sprint meeting, I have already discussed what are these sprint meetings. Now I'm going to finally discuss about what is the Agile framework, Scrum framework. Actually, this is a small glance, and let me show it over to you. Okay, so now let's see that. So you see here that, one second. Okay, so you see here that there is inputs. Product owner is the one who takes inputs from customers, managers, executive, anywhere. And he prioritizes that, he decides that what needs to be worked on first. And depending upon that, the team called for sprint planning meeting. they start on the planning on that, how their things would be delivered, what out of this backlog, whether you can commit for the same backlog or not, or it needs to reduce, increase something. So that is a sprint planning meeting. And then you break out on the task, you give them the sprint backlog. And once the sprint backlog is decided, you start working on the sprints. And this could be between 2 weeks, 4 weeks, depending upon the work. And even though the sprint is of 2 to 4 weeks, you have a daily scrum meeting. You come back in every day morning and say that what has been completed, what you are going to do, and if there is any impediments into doing that. At the same time, Scrum Master comes in. He shows that what is the velocity with the team is moving, whether this velocity is sufficient enough to deliver the particular iteration within the time box manner or not. So all this depends on the Scrum Master, how it shows to the different stakeholders. And once the sprint is completed, you give the finished work. And when you complete and give the finished work, you do a sprint review in which you see, and dev team shows to the product owner, Scrum Master, and other members that what you have completed. The product owner asks the cross questions, that what is the definition of done and what are the XYZ things about the product that has been delivered. The dev team answers, and finally the product owner decides that it is actually the sprint is actually completed and the deliverables have been actually finished or not. And finally, then when everything is done, we do a sprint retro meeting. The sprint retro meetings again states the same things. What should we stop doing it? What should we start doing it? And what should we continue doing that? So that is the Scrum framework at glance. In my next week's meeting, next week's training, I'm going to talk all about these piece by piece manner, each of these things in a very detailed manner, because Scrum is one of the topic training by itself. So I'm going to take it over, but this is just take it as a glance. Next is agile development meetings, because these meetings are a little bit complicated. Sometimes people who are new, they don't understand that what this meeting mean actually. So I'll just show it over to you what these different meetings are. The sprint planning meeting, it shows about the backlog, task, and goals. Daily Scrum meeting, again, what you did yesterday, what you're doing now, what is impediments. Sprint review, you show that what you have done and you take the feedback. Then finally you call out whether it's done or not. And the sprint retro meeting just say that whether you should stop doing it, you should start doing it, or you should continue doing that. So that is all about the meetings. And finally, we have come to the last part of this training, that when Agile fails. Agile is never a method of 100% success. And many times, if it is not implemented in the right manner, it is bound to fail. I've seen many projects failing in Agile. One of the key things about failing on Agile is the micromanagement. The moment you start doing the micromanagement in your teams, Agile is bound to fail, because it crossovers the first fundamental principle of self-organizing team. The moment you are trying to tell someone what should he do, the moment you start telling someone that what did he do wrong, you are not encouraging creativity, you are not encouraging performance. So micromanagement is the first killer. Second, Agile could be a very high pressure environment, because in many of the organizations there is so high pressure on delivery that if you have a backlog and if you have to deliver in a 2 weeks time, you have to deliver in 2 weeks time. So in that case, if the company is having the mindset that this time box is non-negotiable, it tries to push us. Sometimes the management tries to pushes people to work overtime and to work in any of the ways. This leads to burnout of people. And in such cases, Agile fails. Why Agile fails? Because in those cases, it focuses more on delivery than on quality. And the moment you take your eye off from quality, you are just completely gone. So in these cases, Agile fails. If your focus is on velocity than value, again, I said that if you are so focused that you have to deliver in a time box manner, you sometimes just fail to see the value that you are creating or not. So that is one of the problem fails. And finally, there is one particular thing in which Agile definitely fails, is if you have a complex one, if you're not able to break down into simplistic forms, then you are not able to do the right estimations. If you're not able to do the right estimations, then you are bound to fail, because it would not be bringing you a good return of investments. So these are the major 5 reasons when Agile fails. This could be one of the key topic points when people discuss about Agile, or someone talks about in interviews in Agile. So people has to understand this way, that Agile is not a 100% success cure. It could fail also if not taken in a right order. So now I would just say that thank you everyone for joining this training, and you have been a great audience. And I'm hoping that we are going to continue this session from next week onwards too. I'm going to take up Scrum. And if you have any questions for me for anything, so just put that into comment box, and you can also put that into our YouTube channel. If you need any consultations regarding your training or your career, then definitely you are able to do it on my email address. You can use the email address connect@careerisland.com, and you can visit the website www.careerisland.com if you need any kind of help in the careers. And finally, you can, if you want to go into LinkedIn and follow me, then you can. There is a link in this page. You can log on to the link and follow my page. All right, thanks so much. I'm pretty sure that we are going to meet up next week, and I'm going to share all the meeting links in the WhatsApp group. So see you then. Till then, take care. Have a nice time. Bye-bye.